What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's early thoughts ahead of Game Week 25. So I'm going to talk about some key players, go through some notes from the weekend, and go through some early thoughts on my team as well. So let's get into it. So let's start with Joao Pedro. No forward has more transfers in than him so far this week, and it's no surprise with the form that he's in at the moment. I think my general thoughts with him are, he's a pretty good pick in the short term, but he does come with some risks. And those risks are the minutes, because we literally saw him get benched at the weekend. Now, anyone that owned him for Game Week 24 obviously doesn't care, because he came on at halftime, got a goal and an assist. It was a really nice return. But the chances are, if you keep getting benched, those returns won't keep coming. Most of the time, you'll get subbed on a bit later in the game, and most of the time, you'll get a 1-point cameo. So I personally hate buying players that are at risk of not starting. It just gets super frustrating very quickly. And the problem with Chelsea is they had Napoli on Wednesday, then a game on Saturday, then they play again on Tuesday against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. So that's probably why Joao Pedro was rested. The Wolves game in Game Week 25 is next Saturday. So you've got Arsenal Tuesday, Wolves on Saturday. That's fine. Joao Pedro will start both of those games. I don't really have any concerns about that. It's the Leeds game that I'm worried about, because that's on Tuesday. So it's Wolves on Saturday, then Leeds on Tuesday. Could he get reduced minutes in that Game Week 26 match? Potentially. Now, you could definitely argue that the fixtures over the next three are so good, and he's in such good form, and putting out pretty good underlying numbers, that it doesn't matter. It's worth the risk. That's fine. Just be aware the risks are there. I think it's great that Chelsea, for FPL purposes, don't have Champions League playoffs. I'm pretty sure he'll start Burnley at home as well. So it's only really that Leeds game. So I think you definitely get 2 starts out of the next 3. It's whether you get all 3. And whether you want to take the risk on that is obviously completely up to you. The bigger question really is, who are you selling him for, I suppose? Like, if you've got a forward that's let's say you're still stuck there with Voltemada, then obviously you just take the punt on Joao Pedro. If you've still got Watkins and he's ruled out for a couple of weeks, you probably take the punt on Joao Pedro. But if you've got Ekitike, that's a much harder decision, I think, unless you need to free up the money. Because you could argue, once you get to Game Week 28, Chelsea players are worth selling. Like, Arsenal away in 28 is not great, then it's Villa away and Newcastle at home. Now, if you had Chelsea attackers for Villa away and Newcastle at home, you wouldn't be in a panic, right? You could play them, but that fixture on 28 to 30 is not great. So do you sell Ekitike to get Joao Pedro? If you need the money, maybe. Otherwise, I'm not sure I would rush out and do that. And it's a similar conversation with Thiago. Like, Thiago's price is constantly up and down. Right now, he's being sold en masse. Newcastle away, Arsenal at home. Obviously, Joao Pedro is better for the next 2. But from 27-28 onwards, surely you take the nailed penalty taker. So is it worth a transfer to bring Joao Pedro in to take him straight back out? That probably depends on how many other issues you've got in your team. Like, I've got Thiago, but I also have a Saka problem to deal with. So Thiago's not my main priority right now. Therefore, I'll probably just go without Joao Pedro. But for you, it might be a little bit different. So I do like him for the next 3 weeks, but there is a bit of a worry about Game Week 26. And then after 27, you're probably looking to sell. Also, we should note that if Chelsea beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday and they go through to the final, they will double in 26. At that point, I think most of us will probably jump on Joao Pedro in the short term. But without that double, I don't know. Obviously, Chelsea players are good for the next 3, but it feels like it's only the next 3 without the double. And then you can get away without owning them. So in some ways, I kind of feel like if you didn't buy them in 24, you probably, in the most case, just go without them now, unless you need a specific position. Like, if you need a forward, obviously just take the punt on Joao Pedro. But if you don't, then I don't think there's a need to sell a player that you're going to buy back later on. So let's talk about Semenyo next. Another goal for Man City at the weekend, and lots of comments about him on the stream yesterday. So I thought I would get all my thoughts about him in one place and try and be a bit more concise than I am on the stream sometimes. So I think Semenyo is a good pick, as long as he keeps starting. And right now, that doesn't really look in question. Now, he is a Man City player. We've been here plenty of times before. They play well, and then they just get dropped for seemingly no reason, and then they're out of the team for a while. So that could happen. But if he started the next 3, 4, 5 game weeks, I wouldn't be surprised. And if that happens, he's a good pick. I think what I disagree with people on is that he's anything more than just a good pick. He's not essential. And this idea that he's some kind of rank killer that you can't do well unless you own him is just complete nonsense, really. He scored 7 points at the weekend. Nice return if you owned him. It's hardly a points total that you can't recover from, right? It's 7 points. It's not the end of the world. And I think actually, when people check their rank mid-game week, it really clouds their judgment at times on how good or bad a player might be. Like, if you went into the Man City game last night with Haaland, but not your captain, and Semenyo, of course, when they score points, your rank is going to go down. But it doesn't mean that means you have to bring Semenyo in. Because had Man City played at the start of the week, and then the rest of your players had played afterwards, your rank would have continued to gone up. And so you wouldn't have been so worried about missing Semenyo's massive 7 points. So he is a good pick, but he's not anything more than that, in my opinion. Like, to put it into perspective, since he joined Man City, he scored 17 points in 3 game weeks. That's really good, by the way, just under 6 points per game. There's 12 midfielders that have scored more points than that in the same 3 game weeks. Elliot Anderson, who's 5.3 million, has also scored 17 points. So he's matched Semenyo in the last 3 game weeks. Now, don't get me wrong. I suspect over the long term, if Semenyo keeps playing, he will outscore Elliot Anderson over kind of 8 to 10 game weeks. My point is that you can do well without Semenyo. You don't have to rush to bring him in. If you've got him, obviously you're not selling because he's doing really well for you right now. But if you haven't got him, what's the rush to get him before Liverpool away? Just come back to it in game week 26. There's so many good midfielders to buy right now. Semenyo does not have to be top of the list, not with a fixture like Liverpool away. And I know Liverpool defence has not been as good as we hoped this season, but it's still on paper not a great fixture. So I think you come back to it in game week 26. And then there's a decision to be made because Man City will probably blank in 31. So 26 to 30 looks quite good. Fulham at home, Newcastle at home, Leeds away, Forest at home, West Ham away. But if you bring him in and then you know you're going to have to transfer him out in 31, he's got to be much, much better than the other players you could consider bringing in that don't blank in game week 31. And I suspect for most people, he's not the one you should be bringing in. Again, good pick, but probably not much more than that. There's plenty of other midfielders that could match him over those 5 game weeks that don't blank in game week 31. Like if you're considering between, and I know you can own them both, of course, but if you're considering between Semenyo and MBEUMO, there's only one winner there, in my opinion. Like Man United's fixtures are just as good, and they definitely play in game week 31. Semenyo probably won't. And the other argument that keeps getting thrown back at me is the total points. Why would you not want Semenyo, who scored the most points this season? I get it, but we're not playing game weeks 1 to 24 all over again. We're playing game weeks 25 to 38. And I do think he'll continue to score pretty good points. I just question whether the rate will be so much that you have to own him. And like, if you're basing all your decisions on total points, like, does that mean I can't bring in MBEUMO because Garner's scored more points? It just doesn't make sense, right? Wirtz is doing really well at the moment, but you can't buy him because Stack has scored more. Like, total points is just not the way to look at things, right? I mean, maybe it tells us something that the defensive midfielders are actually pretty good this year. Like Gravenberch is on 101, Casemiro is on 105, etc. But most of the time, we don't make decisions on who's already scored the most points, or at least that's not the best way to do it. Like on the stream last night, Rodgers and Wilson owners, they're thinking about selling him, but they've scored a huge amount of points. Does that mean you have to buy them over MBEUMO or Cunha or Ahmad? Of course not. So Semenyo's done really well. And again, to reiterate, he's a good pick. If you want to buy him, go for it. He's not essential though, and he's definitely not a rank killer. Yes, when you don't own him and he scores points, your rank will go down, but you've got other midfielders that can also score points. So as I've just mentioned them, let's talk about Man United midfielders next. I'm going to take Bruno Fernandes as a given at this point. If you don't own him, you should probably think about bringing him in sometime soon. He's just a really good pick. And I don't think I really need to explain why at this point. And it's a really nice position to be in compared to the start of the season. So Bruno is good. Try and get him soon if you can. Could you consider an additional Man United midfielder alongside him? Absolutely. Now, the fixture run I've just mentioned is probably better than Man City. And I do stand by that, mostly because they don't play Liverpool away this week. But it's not the perfect run. They don't have like Burnley at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, etc. like Chelsea have, but it's an okay fixture run. They only play once a week. They're fresh. They're getting lots of rest, and they definitely play in game week 31 as well. So Spurs at home, West Ham away, Everton away, Palace at home, Newcastle away, Villa at home. It's not a fixture run that you have to go out of your way to target, but it's also kind of reasonable as well. Now, if you're looking at MBEUMO, Cunha or Ahmad and you've got the money, MBEUMO is definitely the best pick, in my opinion. The underlying numbers all season have been the best. 0.37 non-penalty expected goals per 90, 0.21 expected assists. He's playing number 9 at the moment. And what was nice for the Fulham game, compared to the previous 2 games against Arsenal and City, is when the sub was made for Šeško to come on, MBEUMO just went to left wing and it was Cunha that was subbed instead. Now, is it possible in a future game that Cunha gets left on and MBEUMO gets subbed around the 70th minute? Yes, but I think it's much more likely Cunha's the first to go off out of that front 3 of MBEUMO, Cunha and Ahmad. So if you've got the money, it's MBEUMO. Cunha's kind of a bit of an awkward spot where he's only 0.4 million cheaper than MBEUMO and the minutes aren't quite so secure. So if you really want a Man United midfielder and you can't afford MBEUMO, you could go for Cunha. But honestly, at that point, I'd probably just save the money and get Ahmad. Like, he's basically played almost the full 90 minutes in each of the 3 games under Carrick. It's really encouraging for his minutes going forward that when that sub was made, MBEUMO got shoved left and not Ahmad. So Ahmad staying in his best position. And actually, although his goal threat's a little bit lower than Cunha and he probably doesn't like to shoot quite as much, the goal threat's not bad and he's more creative as well. And it saves you 1.8 million. So I think Cunha's fine. I do think he's a bit awkward. Either you spend the money on MBEUMO or you go for Ahmad. And Ahmad's a huge differential at 1.6% owned. The only thing I would then say, though, is Ahmad worth going for compared to other players around that price? Like, as an example, for 6.2 million... I just typed the right name here. I mean, for 0.1 million more, you can go and get Ismail Assar, who looks like he might be on penalties now. And Palace have got Burnley at home in 26, Wolves at home in 27, Leeds at home in 30. Now, if Man City go through to the Carabao Cup final, which they almost certainly will, they do blank in 31, Crystal Palace. So you've got to keep that in mind. Maybe it's not worth the transfer in, transfer out. You just go for Ahmad, who you know will play all the way through. But is Sarr a competitive player against Ahmad for 0.1 million more, potentially now on penalties? 100% yes. If Chelsea beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup and all of a sudden Everton are doubling in game week 26, is Njai at 6.2 million on penalties with a potential double in 26 worth it over Ahmad? Absolutely. So I think it's like a situation where Man United do have a lot of options, but actually, unless you're going for MBEUMO, I'm not so sure. Cunha's fine. A little bit awkward in my opinion. And Ahmad's good as a huge differential, but is he miles better than the other players at that price? I'm not sure he is. You know me, I'm always taking the penalties. Like if I could afford the transfers to go Sarr first, that's probably what I would do. So it's not that I think Cunha and Ahmad are bad. I just question whether it's worth going for them over other players. So MBEUMO clearly the one. Ahmad's a great differential and a really nice price point compared to Cunha. They're all worth considering. But, I mean, as with most players at the moment, none of them are absolutely essential. So I guess we've got to talk about Saka next. Missed game week 24 against Leeds, picked up an injury in the warm-up. Arteta did say it was a small problem and he didn't feel comfortable to start the game, so they didn't take a chance with him. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be a long-term problem, but obviously Saka hasn't been quite delivering on the 10 million price point, and now you've got a slight injury problem to worry about. He is probably someone to look to sell. Now, if he's in the squad for the Carabao Cup game tomorrow on Tuesday and he gets minutes, you could consider keeping him. But if there's any doubts about his minutes ahead of Sunderland at home, I think he's probably got to go, especially if Arsenal do beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, because then they've got a double in 26. And you don't want to go into a double game week with minutes risks. So if there's any doubts about Saka going into 25-26, he's got to go. In terms of who you buy, there is genuinely a ton of midfield options you can go for. Let's just get the Arsenal stuff out of the way first of all. In my opinion, the best triple up is 3 of 4 players. Raya, Gabriel, Timber and Declan Rice. That's the 4 players that I will be looking at. Is Calafiori an option? Yes, if you trust the minutes. I just think he always seems to pick up an odd injury here or there. They've got Nkapia that can cover at left back as well. I'm not sure I would risk it unless I was desperate to go for Calafiori because of the price. And he is a huge differential, by the way. And when he does play, he does have a lot of attacking threat. I just don't know if I would personally take the risk going into 26. But you could consider Calafiori. Saliba is obviously the safe pick as well. Like, he will play all the matches. You wouldn't see him coming out of the team for Mosquera or something like that. But he's not very good for defensive contributions. And he's not all that attacking either. So Saliba's kind of safe for minutes, but one of the most boring picks I think you can make for Arsenal. And I know Raya is not that interesting either, but I'm just saying a lot of people probably already own Raya, and in that case, I wouldn't sell him to buy someone else. I'm not saying you pick up Raya right now. If I was wildcarding, I'd probably go Gabriel, Timber, Rice. I just think Raya is okay if you've already got him. So that's the Arsenal part covered. I think whether you go Rice or triple defence is completely up to you. I think both ways can work. I think my overall feelings would be go for the route that is the least amount of transfers for you is kind of how I would think about it. If going Saka to Rice and then you're happy with the rest of your team only uses one transfer versus using two to double up or triple up on the defence instead, I'd probably just go for Rice. The only reason that I am personally tempted to go triple defence instead of going for Rice is there's so many good midfielders. Whereas with defenders, it's not the case. Arsenal defenders are the best in the league for FPL. Declan Rice is not necessarily the best midfielder in FPL. Like, he's good, like Semenyo, but he's not essential or anything like that. So you could go to MBEUMO, you could go for Saka, you could go for Elliot Anderson, you could take a punt on Palmer, you could go for Enzo Fernandez. There's so many good picks, you don't have to go for Rice, but he's definitely an option. So I think if I was wildcarding, Rice, Timber, Gabriel is probably where I would go. For my own team, as I'll talk about in a minute, I definitely think triple defence is an option and probably more of a differential than going for Rice as well. So let's see on Saka. If he gets minutes midweek in the Carabao Cup, I might personally be tempted to keep him. But any doubts, I'm just getting rid because the double game week in 26, if they have one, will be way too important. So just some other notes from the weekend. For Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest, Ismail Assar took the penalty. Mateta wasn't in the squad. It does look like he's going to leave Crystal Palace in the January transfer window, which shuts tonight, by the way. So you will know before game week 25 which players are playing where. So definitely worth keeping an eye on Assar at 6.3. Really nice fixtures coming up. Good goal threat from open play and now potentially on penalties. I know Strand Larsen is likely to join Palace as well. He's only 6.1 million. It's not officially confirmed at the time recording. It probably will be later on today. Presumably, Strand Larsen comes in and just plays all the time like Mateta did, but I don't know if that's a guarantee, like straight away. It could just be Pino, Johnson, and Sarr, like we saw against Forest. So don't take that as a given. But yes, Strand Larsen is definitely worth considering for Palace at 6.1. And maybe you leave it for game week 25 and potentially come back to it in game week 26. I also think people will start to look at their team over the next few weeks and not be that far off a bench boost. Like, I've already considered that if I sell Saka down to someone cheaper, maybe I upgrade Guiu to someone like Strand Larsen and bench boost before I wildcard. Do I think Strand Larsen will definitely be on penalties? Not necessarily. I think the fact that Sarr stepped up, took one and scored means there's every chance he will just keep them. I think Strand Larsen missed his last penalty in the league as well. So don't take it as a given that Strand Larsen's going to take penalties off Sarr. If I had to make a prediction, Sarr will take the next one, whether Strand Larsen's there or not. For Brentford, Collins was benched. I don't know if there was an injury or anything like that. I've not seen anything. If you know any more than I do, leave a comment below. So Vandenberg and Ayer both started. I actually think if you're a Vandenberg owner, that's kind of clouded it a little bit. You know, had Collins started and Vandenberg had played ahead of Ayer, that would have been good. But I'm not sure who's going to get the minutes going forward. Now, the next fixture is Newcastle away, then it's Arsenal at home. So give yourself 2 more weeks to think about it. If you've got Vandenberg or Collins, just bench them if you can for the next 2. Then reassess ahead of game week 27. Because if they're going to get minutes 27 onwards, they're good. If they're not, obviously they might need to be sold. So see who starts the next couple of games. I'd be surprised if Collins is permanently left out. So to be honest, I think if you're a Vandenberg owner, obviously you've got the points this weekend. I suspect long term he's not going to play. But I want to see 2 more game weeks before I make a call on that. For Man City, Foden's got to go. Bench 3 games in a row. He has truly been banished. This is what I meant earlier when I was talking about Semenyo. Like, Foden started 19 games in a row, and now he's been benched 3 games in all competitions. That's how quickly it can change at Man City. I'm not saying I'm not saying that's about to happen to Semenyo. I just said I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the next 4, 5, 6 weeks it does happen because this is Pep Guardiola. Foden, just don't hold on to him anymore. I mean, like, even when Cherky went off yesterday, Reinders came on first. Foden's no good. O'Reilly started in midfield, Ait-Nouri left back. When Ait-Nouri went off, O'Reilly moved to left back. O'Reilly's minutes might be okay moving forward, but I just think it's a constant headache. So again, if you're looking to sell a defender and you're not sure who and you've got O'Reilly, I would just rid yourself of that headache. For Villa, Watkins wasn't in the squad. We knew he had a knock going into that game. The word that's come out from a few journalists is they just didn't want to take a risk and he'll be back in the next squad. So if you've got Watkins, I wouldn't rush to sell him. The fixtures are pretty good. Let's see what Unai Emery says ahead of the weekend. Douglas Luiz, 4.9 million straight in. He's going to play a lot of minutes, maybe on penalties. We don't know that. An option at 4.9. But honestly, if you can stretch to Elliot Anderson at 5.3, I'd probably go for him instead. Or even Dewsbury Hall for Everton at 4.9 is nice too. So I'm just going to run through some early thoughts on my team ahead of game week 25. I've got 2 free transfers and 1.5 million in the bank. And apart from Bukayo Saka, I actually think my team looks kind of okay. But obviously, if Saka is out, I will need to deal with that. So I've got Raya and Gabriel double up against Sunderland at home, which looks great. Joachim Andersen to come in against Everton at home, a player that's been great for defensive contributions all season. Lewis Hall, who I am thinking about selling soon, does have Brentford at home this week. So he's not an absolute must-sell, specifically in game week 25. But after this week, the fixtures aren't great for Newcastle clean sheet. So he's okay this week, not necessarily great long term. Bruno Fernandes captain against Spurs at home. I'm pretty sure that will stick. I know on the Saturday deadline stream just gone, I was a little bit like, should I go Bruno? Should I go Haaland? I'm not going to have that issue this week because Haaland's got Liverpool away. So Bruno will almost certainly be my captain. Enzo Fernandez Wolves away. Elliot Anderson Leeds away. Szoboszlai against City at home is not great this week, but the fixtures for Liverpool are very good afterwards, and his minutes are absolutely secure. I just hope that he plays right back a little bit less moving forward. And then Thiago against Newcastle away. He's not amazing this week or next week against Arsenal, but I suspect there's a good chance I will bench him against Arsenal. And then 27 onwards, I really like him again. I just do not see the need to spend a transfer to get rid of him just to bring him back. Senesi on the bench against Villa at home. I mean, if Saka was out, I could, in theory, play Senesi and roll, but I don't think I will do that. And then Van Dijk City at home on the bench as well. With Van Dijk, as I explained on the stream yesterday, I know he's not great value. I don't really care about value right now. I've got 1.5 in the bank. If I sell Saka, that's going to free up even more money. It's really difficult to spend. So I can just treat Van Dijk like a 4.5 million defender. He always plays. The goal threat's good. He's got DEFCONs the last 2 games. I'll bench him for the more difficult games and play him in the easier ones. And when I'm desperate for the money, maybe he gets sold. I just don't see how I get desperate for money anytime soon. Unless Salah scores like a hat-trick in the next 3 games and all of a sudden I panic that I've got to get him in. Like, who needs... Like, the money is just so easy right now. So Van Dijk can stay for that reason. Basically, with Saka, current thoughts... If he's fine, I could roll, but I suspect I will do something like Lewis Hall and Szoboszlai to cash and MBEUMO. Not necessarily cash, but I do like him for Villa. They've got pretty good fixtures coming up. I can bench him for the more difficult ones, and I do just like the idea of getting MBEUMO in. Szoboszlai's fine, but I think MBEUMO is better, right? Clearly. And with Lewis Hall, he is better than Van Dijk this week, but he's not better than Van Dijk moving forward, in my opinion. So that's why I would sell Hall over Van Dijk. And again, if I needed the money from selling Van Dijk, maybe I would do that instead, but I don't think I do. If Saka's injured and Arsenal end up doubling, then the choice is fairly straightforward between 2 options. So it's Saka, Szoboszlai to Rice and MBEUMO. It could be a different midfielder to MBEUMO, but it would probably be him. So you just get the Arsenal player in straight away. Or if I wanted to keep Szoboszlai, I could just do Saka to Rice and roll a transfer, but I suspect I would go for MBEUMO. So that's one option. Or the other one is to move to triple defence rather than going for Declan Rice. So it would be something like Saka and Lewis Hall to Palmer or MBEUMO and then Timber. Now, at the moment, I have got the exact money to do Saka to Palmer, Lewis Hall to Timber, and there's part of my brain saying that is a no-brainer. I know the risk with Palmer. I completely get the risk. You don't need to tell me he might not start all 3 of the next 3 games. It's a lot of money. He's had fitness problems and stuff like that. I get it. But the fact I can do it in 2 moves and it's a massive differential play, I am so tempted. And I think even if I don't go for Palmer, right now I'm probably 70% likely to go Timber rather than Rice. I think Rice is a really good pick, but he is very highly owned. And I kind of want to go against that because I think there's lots of good midfielders right now. It's the same conversation as with Semenyo. Semenyo is a good pick, but he's nowhere near essential. And if anything, I'd rather take the opportunity to take that ownership on. And I kind of want to do that with Rice as well. And also with Arsenal defenders, they are just great. There's not many defenders that are better than them. Maybe Munoz. That's the only one I'm thinking about. outside of that, I just don't really care about any other defender. I've got decent defenders. I don't need to worry about changing them around. Yeah, I don't know. I'll come back to that one in a second. If Saka's injured and Chelsea double, then Saka to MBEUMO and maybe do Lewis Hall to Chalobah later on, or Saka to Palmer and then do Szoboszlai to Njai later on. Maybe pick up one or more. I think if Chelsea double, I might have to take some hits, like to get Tarkowski, Chalobah, maybe Joao Pedro, maybe Palmer, Njai. There's lots of players I think I would want. And even if I don't have to take hits to bring them in, I would then have to get rid of them. I think the Chelsea double would probably push me to taking hits. So the easy route for me is if Arsenal double, but Chelsea double will be interesting. Maybe free hit comes out in 26 if Chelsea double. I suspect not, but it would be an option. Just going back to the Palmer Timber thing, right? So let's say Palmer comes in for Saka. If you want to switch off right now, I don't blame you because I probably won't buy Palmer. I'll just say that right now. But it is very interesting to me. And Lewis Hall to Timber, exact money. Now, I'm not going to make this move until Arsenal and Chelsea play in the Carabao Cup, so I know who's definitely doubling in 26. If the prices hold, could I consider doing that? Maybe. When you look at my defence, right, Raya, Timber, Gabriel, I mean, that's great. Sunderland at home. The fixtures coming up afterwards are not terrible. You're always happy to play your Arsenal defensive players. With Van Dijk, I could move into Munoz later on if I wanted to, but 26 to 30, the fixtures are quite good. Sunderland away, Forest away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home. So I'm happy to keep him, right? And then I could, in theory, if I go for MBEUMO instead of Palmer, free up enough money to buy Munoz and Timber. But then I've got to sell Senesi or Anderson, and they're both just really good bench options. Like really good. They're great for DEFCONs. They've got good fixtures coming up. Like you look at Fulham's fixtures. I can play Anderson this week, and in 27, and in 28, and in 29, and in 30, and in 31. But that's just really good cover that I don't want to mess with. And it's the same with Senesi. Like, he's just got an 8-pointer at the weekend. I'd happily play him against Villa if I needed to. Everton away is fine. West Ham away is fine. Sunderland at home's good. Brentford at home's fine. Burnley away is good. And if I have to play him in the blank against Man United, against Bruno Fernandes and maybe MBEUMO, it's okay because he's great for DEFCONs. So that's why I really like that route. My defence, in my opinion, is very good, and I can just take the Palmer punt. So I think the Palmer... Yeah, I think it depends on Szoboszlai thoughts. If I think Szoboszlai is a pretty good pick moving forward, then why not just take a punt on Palmer? Like, this is how I would look at it, right? Let's just say, I know we don't, but let's just say we all agree that Szoboszlai is okay to keep. Anderson's good. Fernandes is good. Enzo Fernandes is good as well. I'm basically at that point taking a punt on Palmer rather than MBEUMO or Sarr or Njai or Semenyo or Cunha. So it's just Palmer versus those players because the rest of my midfield is okay. And at that point, that's probably okay to do. Like, is Palmer value for money? No. Is Saka value for money? Also no. And it's been going okay with that Saka price point in my squad. So it is very tempting. But of course, if I went for MBEUMO instead of Palmer and then still got Timber, I'd have 2 million. So at any point, if I want to upgrade Szoboszlai, I can go up to 8.6 million or below, which basically is any midfielder I want, apart from Salah or Saka or Palmer. I've already got Bruno Fernandes. So that is probably the more logical choice to get MBEUMO. But I really do think that if I think Szoboszlai is okay to keep, I think Palmer's really interesting to me. And I know I've been quite down on him, and I still kind of am, to be honest. Like, he can absolutely only start 2 of the next 3. Because he's such a big differential, and because I've got that Saka injury now to deal with, he is a bit tempting. I mean, do you know what? I could create a narrative that Palmer's okay if you wanted. Like, it wasn't the groin problem that kept him out of that game against Palace. It was a thigh problem. And then as soon as Rossini said he's available to start, he started and played 90 minutes. Let's see how many minutes he gets in the Carabao Cup. I think that'd be a really good indicator of his fitness right now. We'll see. And we need to wait and see what happens with Saka. We need to wait and see who doubles. But I think generally the team is fine. I'm definitely dead ending to 31. I'm not wildcarding before game week 31. And like, most of these players are good all the way through to 31. Enzo, like, I guess if I go for Palmer, then him and Enzo would need to be sold probably in 28. But if I use 2 transfers this week in 25, roll 26, roll 27, then I have 3 moves in 28 to deal with them. And it's a huge differential play. It's tempting. You know me, I'll probably end up going for the boring Declan Rice. I don't think I'm going to go Rice. I think I'm really going to go Timber. We'll see. That's a long rant about nothing. Probably won't even buy Palmer. If you enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Rate 5 stars if you listen on podcast. And I'll catch you tomorrow for transfer tips.